Hi, this is Derek Murphy. I've been working behind the scenes with authors in the publishing industry for about 10 years. I started off as a book editor when I was doing my PhD in literature. Then I got into book cover design, marketing, and kind of all facets of publishing, because what I realized is after authors finish a book, they have a really hard time building a platform, building an email list, connecting with readers, getting reviews, all the stuff that has to do with getting your book in front of people and presenting it in a way that they actually want to buy it. So building in intrinsic and obvious benefits and value so that when you present them the book, you don't have to sell it to them or convince them to read it, because you've done it in such a way where the offer is obvious and they just want it because you've packaged it and positioned it in a way that's attractive to them. So that's kind of what I've been doing behind the scenes. But what I've realized is increasingly, especially this year, is that of course it really all depends on having a good book, having a book that readers enjoy. So that's really what I focus on. I focus on reader-centric fiction and nonfiction books, which just means I deliberately figure out who my audience is and how I can satisfy them. I define a good book as one that more readers enjoy reading, and of course that's going to be an easier book to sell. I think it's just as enjoyable or more enjoyable to write that kind of book rather than trying to listen to your muse. And it doesn't mean that you can be less creative or that your muse isn't part of the process if you're also trying to be inclusive and writing books that sell also. I think you can enjoy books and your readers can enjoy your books, but it does have to be deliberate. You do have to do it on purpose rather than doing it accidentally, because what most authors do is they just write the book that they want to write. They don't figure out any kind of a structure or plotting or organization. They just put all their ideas down there. On the one hand, this makes it much harder to actually finish the book, because they're going to end up with a big messy manuscript and it's going to go through years of revision and they're never really going to feel happy with it. It's a lot easier to write a good book deliberately if you know who your audience is and you know how it should be structured. So that's something I really wanted to focus on. But the other big part of that is actually getting the book done, which means finding the time to sit down, keeping the motivation and the confidence, just knowing that the book you're going to write is going to be successful and readers are going to like it because you followed some kind of a system. So that's what I've tried to do in this course, which is a Bestseller Blueprint. I've taken everything that I know about writing fiction and nonfiction. I've worked with hundreds of authors as a book editor for many years. I've also been behind the scenes in publishing for a long time. So I see what kind of books are successful, and I want to help you to write those kinds of books. So this is not hopefully a huge course. I have other courses on book marketing or platform building. This one's really just about getting the writing done and finishing a great book that's going to satisfy readers. And there's some little tricks and tips that you can do. So I tried to make this kind of as quick and easy as possible with some cheat sheets or outlines. There's some bullet points and like common mistakes I see all the time for fiction and nonfiction authors. So even if you just look at those and you double check your manuscript before you publish it, just to make sure you're not making any of these basic mistakes that most other authors make, that can already be a huge boon or value add to your publishing. You do want to make sure your book is as good as it can be. This should also save you a lot of money with editing. Personally, I don't use a developmental editor. Someone was asking me about that the other day. And the reason is because I know what I'm doing and I structure really well. The part that's really important is the content. It's making sure you have well-structured content that readers love. The actual sentence by sentence, word choice, sentence construction, that stuff's important, but mostly you just want it to get out of the way so that your content shines through and is easy to absorb and understand by readers. So a mistake that I see a lot of authors make is that they just put the content out, they finish their first rough draft, and they just send it off to an editor, and it's really not ready to be edited yet. It doesn't have the good structure. An editor, even a developmental editor, they can tell you what's wrong with it and how to improve it, but they're not going to rewrite it for you. So if you send editors your first draft and expect them to fix the organization or the plotting and the structure, they can come back with a lot of story questions and you'll need to rewrite it, but it'll still kind of be a messy process. So they can only help you to some extent. They can't write the book or solve the critical problems for you. They can make it much, much better without actually solving any of the critical stuff. So that's what's frustrating about being an editor, is that I can make the book read beautifully by fixing all of the language, but I won't be solving the core critical problems with the story or the organization or the content. So even if you pay lots of money for a developmental editor, they can make it clean and improve it so much, but it still may not sell any books, because it doesn't necessarily mean that readers are going to find it more enjoyable. And that's why I don't necessarily recommend editorial review or manuscript critiques from a developmental editor, because they generally cost $3,000 or $4,000, and for a lot of authors, that's not an investment. It's if they're finishing and critiquing a book to make it better, and of course you want to do as well as it can, but if you haven't written a book that's going to stand on its own and satisfy readers, that income, you're not going to earn it back because you haven't put out a book that's going to sell. So that's why I really focus on the Bestseller Blueprint. It's about writing good books that satisfy readers, but we really focus on the sells, because if your book is good and satisfy readers, you should be able to earn from it. It should be able to sell. And if you can get your books to sell, that just means you can invest in growing your platform and take your writing career to the next level. So that's why I personally focus on the sales. I think it's really important when you focus on writing professionally, if you want to be a career author, you can't just guess and cross your fingers and hope that somebody out there is going to like it. You need to figure out the value of your book and who is going to appreciate that value. That's your job as an author. It doesn't matter if you're self-publishing or traditionally publishing. That's on you. You have to figure out the value. So I hope that this course will help you to either start writing from scratch and plot a book or outline a book that's going to be successful, which will make it a lot easier, like I said, a lot easier to finish it and write it. I've also included a bunch of writing and productivity strategies that I use to produce more and to kind of get through the writer's block or the demotivation. But also I hope that there's some templates and cheat sheets and checklists in here that are just going to help you take your book to the next level. Even if it's only to do a final critique of it before you spend $1,000 on a developmental editor, the more that you can push it forward yourself, the easier it's going to be for a developmental editor to really take it to that next level and do more than just clean it up and get it ready to publish. Anyway, so I hope that you enjoyed this course. I hope that you learned a lot from it, and good luck with your books.